second speaker is Rick Cobb. Rick is the Deputy Division Manager, Division of Water Supply at the IEPA. He has 31 years of experience at the Illinois EPA that includes managing the groundwater section. It's this section that will be reviewing and approving the Dynegy-Vistra coal ash closure plan. And Rick is here tonight to discuss IEPA's role in reviewing Dynegy's closure plan as well as the timeline for any possible closure. Mr. Cobb.
Thank you. I'm glad you organized this input session, and so I look forward to the public comment period too, because I'm going to stay and pay attention to what you're saying and listen to your input. But what I wanted to do is to tell you the three key things that we require Dynegy to do and to lay out the schedule. The first thing was, and Pam talked about it, we made them do a bank stability analysis, and as she indicated, there were some surprises in that report. A normal erosion rate of 2.3 feet per year. So no matter what is done in the long term, we're probably going to need some interim work potentially because of some of these storms and things we've had. The second thing was a comprehensive cost comparison of different corrective action objectives, and there are about 5 different objectives in there, anywhere from digging it up to moving it off-site to beneficial reuse to moving it back from the bank to the closing and capping. And what we required in there was a cost and the time frame. And lastly, the thing that we'll be getting in October 18 is that we have required 6 more full rounds of groundwater monitoring. Initially, when we, in Illinois, we required all power plants to install groundwater monitoring wells and to do assessments, and that's where we originally found the groundwater standards violations for boron, TDS, sulfates, and manganese. And so that 6 rounds of groundwater monitoring then will go into a groundwater flow model, and then that groundwater flow model will go into a contaminant transport model. And so those models then will be used to evaluate each of the 5 or 6 closure options that I mentioned that they were required to provide. So basically, we'll be looking at the stabilization, the closure options, and the modeling, all 3 things together in concert before making a decision. I'll also tell you that a couple of weeks ago, we went out on the river and did an inspection. I can't tell you about that inspection report because I don't have it yet. So we'll be looking at that soon as well. And but the main thing is that no matter what happens with the stability, I'll use the P word, and that's perpetuity. That stability has to be there in perpetuity no matter what option. And we've been quite frank with Dynegy since the beginning on that. Even the bank stability that was permitted along the new east impoundment, where the river was within 2 feet of the toe of the berm, that's not really designed for in perpetuity without some kind of a pot of money to maintain that over time. So there's going to have to be some essential component laid out to assure that in perpetuity bank stability, no matter what option is chosen. And so those are the things, and maybe a little bit different than what you might have read in the newspaper or whatever, but that is the schedule. And so with that, I'm going to be here to listen to the experts and hear from some of the things that have happened across the country, and look forward to that and hearing your input.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you just 2 quick questions?
Absolutely.
2 quick kind of points to maybe unpack a little bit. One, I know you mentioned that the IEPA, you said just recently went out and did visual inspection of the mill court. Were you in that group that went? No, but we had 4 staff. One of my staff, Bill Busher, he's heads up my hydrogeology and compliance group. We had 2 canoes, and then we had 3 surface water experts along with a groundwater expert in those canoes. My staff just happens to be a very good person on the water. So that was question 2. You actually went onto the water in the watercraft and looked and took pictures. And yes, we did video as well as took stills. We went upstream several miles and then several miles downstream. All right, sir. And finally, you mentioned that you're waiting on some material from Dynegy or your company. Vistra Dynegy. You mentioned that you were expecting that in October of 2018.
That's correct.
Is that a normal way, or has Vistra asked for extensions, or can you give us an idea? It seems like a long time to wait for something from a little layperson, so can you tell us what you expect, what takes, what kind of things will they be doing in that process, and is this a normal response now? Well, when we laid out the plan and the materials that we wanted from them, we wanted 3 things. The first thing was, okay, hire a professional engineering firm and do the bank stability analysis, and they did that. The second thing was, okay, hire a engineering firm and give us some comprehensive corrective action analysis, and so they did that. The third thing then is that we had monitoring to support the original violation notices that we sent, but we wanted more recent data, so they collected 6 rounds, and we wanted that through all seasons to account for seasonality. So yeah, I mean, usually we want that data to feed into those models that they're going to be using to evaluate all of the options. So yeah, I mean, normally when you're looking for something like this, it does take some time, and we ask for that monitoring and that analysis.
Mr. Cobb, 2 quick
Yes.
The first one is, can you go into a little bit more detail about what factors the EPA will weigh heaviest when it comes to considering those options? Obviously, the corporation is looking for what is the most cost-effective in their eyes. The community, from my perspective, is looking at what is the greatest long-term, safest option. What does the EPA look at in trying to determine which option is most reasonable to recommend?
Well, obviously, the key thing is protecting public health and the environment. That's required by law. And so we'll be looking at all 3 things together. That's why we required all 3 things. And we didn't just say, hey, cap or remove. Give us a range of options with cost-benefit analysis of each of those remedies. But as I emphasized, bank stability, many groundwater projects and corrective actions don't necessarily require that, but this does. This is the only national scenic and wild river in Illinois. So whatever is done here, it's the P word, in perpetuity, bank stability, and it can't be just some sheet piling stuck there, because that's not going to pass muster with the aesthetic quality of the river, nor is it going to be approved by the National Park Service. Even if you did put the sheet piling, even it isn't designed for in perpetuity. There has to be ongoing maintenance. So let me just emphasize that again. The Environmental Protection Act, protecting public health and the environment, is the key driver. But all 3 reports together is what we're going to be evaluating and trying to weigh.
I appreciate that very much. The other quick question that I have for you is, and the Senator talked about the timeline for completion of the study. I guess my question then is about the timeline then of creating a pool of options and then the completion of one of those options. And the reason I'm asking that question is what I heard earlier from Mrs. Richard was a very alarming statistic as it related to the erosion that we're seeing now along some of that bank. So can you give us some idea, once the study is completed, how long then does it take for you to come up with an option, and then what time frame do you give them to complete that option?
That's why I mentioned earlier, and just a lot of information, but that's why I mentioned that there may be an interim requirement for stability before the long-term solution, because at a rate of 2.3 feet per year, even if, let's just pick one of the options that's in there, and that is the digging it up, taking it to an off-site landfill. That is estimated by their consultant to take 8 to 10 years. And I think that's pretty consistent. We've got experts here from North Carolina, and I think that's close to, I think, what we've heard other people. So, you know, we can't just sit around if that's the option that's taken. There's also the on-site option, which stakeholders have thrown out. Now, Dynegy, upon my questioning, remember, it's to knowingly give me incorrect information is a felony, but I do have in writing for them that they don't really have the real estate to do the on-site property. So that, yeah, you bet.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cobb. I know you've traveled a long way to be here tonight, but to be able to ask questions of someone with 31 years experience in this is, I think, truly important for everybody here.